Is it ready to go?
Yes, Mathaji.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, verse 30. Etapparam Sritvam Apastapeshalam Nirastasaucham Bhadasadu Kurvate Yasham Grihat Pushkaralochana Patir Najatvapai Apaitya Kritibhir Kritisprishan Etapparam Sritvam Apastapeshalam Nirastasaucham Bhadasadu Kurvate Yasham Grihat Pushkaralochanapatir Najatyapaitia Ahritibir Hridisprishan. Eta, all these women, Param, highest, Sritvam, womanhood, Apasta Peshalam, without individuality, Nirasta, without Saucham, Nirasta meaning without. Saucham is purity. Beta sadhu, auspiciously glorified. Kurvate, do they make. Yasham, for whose. Grihat, homes. Pushkara lochana, the lotus-eyed. Pati, husband. Najathu, never, at any time. Apaiti, goes away. Ahritibhi, by presentation. Hridi, in the heart. Sprishan, endeared. All these women auspiciously glorified their lives despite their being without individuality and without purity. Their husband, the lotus-eyed personality of Godhead, never left them alone at home. He always pleased their hearts by making valuable presentations. All these women auspiciously glorified their lives despite their being without individuality and without purity. Their husband, the lotus-eyed personality of Godhead, never left them alone at home. He always pleased their hearts by making valuable presentations. The devotees of, Prabhupada by his purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, the devotees of the Lord are purified souls. As soon as the devotees surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord sincerely, the Lord accepts them, and thus the devotees at once become free from all material contaminations. Such devotees are above the three modes of material nature. There is no bodily disqualification of a devotee, just as there is no qualitative difference between the Ganges water and the filthy drain water when they are amalgamated. Women, merchants, and laborers are not very intelligent, and thus it is very difficult for them to understand the science of God or to be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. They are more materialistic, and less than them are the Kiradas, Hunas, Andhras, Pulindas, Pulkashas, Abhiras, Kanakas, Yavanas, and Kashas, etc. But all of them can be delivered if they are properly engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. By engagement in the service of the Lord, the designative disqualifications are removed, and as pure souls, they become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. The fallen girls under the clutches of Bhaumasura sincerely prayed to Lord Sri Krishna for their deliverance, and their sincerity of purpose made them at once pure by virtue of devotion. The Lord therefore accepted them as his wives, and thus their lives became glorified. Such auspicious glorification was still more glorified when the Lord played with them as the most devoted husband. The Lord used to live with his 16,108 wives constantly. He expanded himself into 16,108 plenary portions and each and every one of them was the Lord Himself without deviation from the original personality. The Shruti mantra affirms that the Lord can expand Himself into many. As husband of so many wives, He pleased them all with presentations, even at a costly endeavor. He brought the Parijata plant from heaven and implanted it at the palace of Satyabhama, one of the principal queens. If therefore anyone desires the Lord to become one's husband, the Lord fulfills such desires in full. Om Atnanatimirandhasya Atnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. There is so much, it's interesting that Prabhupada's purport is very strong here. And there is so many interesting things that can be said about the Lord's pastimes, his Swakiya and Parakiya pastimes. But before going into all of those things, I think we can just go through this purport because the first paragraph itself is pretty heavy. So Prabhupada writes here that devotees at once become free from all material contaminations as soon as one turns to the Lord. Such devotees are above the three modes of material nature. How Prabhupada connects everything in this short space is amazing. Because like when we read any of these purports, we see different things depending upon what we are reading, where we are reading from. I myself it took me quite some time to fully get to what Prabhupada is saying here, but every single sentence fits perfectly with the points that Prabhupada is trying to explain. So here is this controversial section. It looks like I'm sure anybody reading this would wonder why Prabhupada would write this. There is no bodily, Prabhupada writes, there is no bodily disqualification of a devotee, just as there is no qualitative difference between Ganges water and filthy drain water when they are amalgamated. So that statement itself, for when you look at it in a superficial way, it is very hard to understand. Because you would think like, how is it that Ganges water, if it is mixed with filthy water, how can it still be pure? Because we have seen how dirty water gets, like when so much sewer is dumped into Yamuna, or so much dead bodies burned and the waste material going into Ganges water. Water looks completely polluted. And so how do you understand that? There is, before to understand that, see the sentences Prabhupada wrote before. Devotees at once become free from material contamination. Such devotees are above the three modes of material nature. There is no bodily disqualification of a devotee. Now, Prabhupada begins by talking about the mixing of Ganges water with filthy water. And here, what does it really mean? When we look at it externally, we see so much of filth, but we do not see the purity of Ganga or Yamuna because they're not of this world. And we're looking at the filth that is entering into the water. So it is an external appearance that we are looking at. And even if you look at the chemistry of water, it is two molecules of hydrogen and one of oxygen, H2O. That cannot be in any way contaminated. That remains as it is, no matter where the water is. And so when the filth enters the water, between the water molecules, it looks like it is contaminated, but that filth cannot touch the original water molecule itself. But above and beyond that, there is the spiritual purity that we are talking about, Ganges or Yamuna, which is completely another story in itself. And so Prabhupada is very clearly saying about, Prabhupada never writes anything without a clear purpose behind it. So we cannot look at this from an external perspective. And then he makes this very It's a statement. I'm sure so much discussion must take place when you see statements like this. Women merchants and laborers are not very intelligent, and thus it is difficult for them to understand the science of God. Now you can wonder why in the world is women merchants and laborers, and then Prabhupada is going that he is giving the answer in the next sentence. Prabhupada writes first that understand the science of God ought to be engaged in devotional service. These three categories of people who are women, merchants, and laborers. But he answers, they are more materialistic and less than them. That's another level. He says they are materialistic. Who is materialistic? More materialistic. He didn't simply say materialistic. He said they are more materialistic. It's a relative term. And so he's saying women, merchants, and laborers are more materialistic, which means they have the materialistic tendency. It's easy for us to understand when we think in terms of a merchant. They have to be materialistic to perform in that profession. And laborers, they're not thinking much in terms of they have to do their practical day-to-day activities, and naturally the modes with which they associate is different. Women, they have their attachment because of the psychophysical nature. It is quite different. But can we categorize all of them as ineligible? Absolutely not. And that also Prabhupada comes later. And so after this sentence, Prabhupada is talking about these less, and he's telling less than them, less than women, laborers and merchants and laborers are, he lists all these Kiradas, Hunas, Andhras, Pulindas, and all that. So in which way they are less? And so these are the categories of people who are by nature more in the lower modes, mode of ignorance or mode of passion, because that is their nature, depending upon the categories that you are seeing here. And so if they are associating with a mode of passion and ignorance, we all know to approach the Supreme Lord, we have to work from the platform of goodness. And therefore, when we have more of an interaction with the modes of passion and ignorance, it takes more time for one to approach the Lord, meaning there has to be a shift from what we are associating with and come to a higher level of association to be able to access Vishuddha Sattva. And so that's what Prabhupada means here. But the real punchline comes after that. He says, but all of them can be delivered if they are properly engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. So this is where see here, the next sentence, Prabhupada says, by engagement in the service of the Lord, the designative disqualifications are removed. What is the designative disqualification? Designations are like you are labeled as a woman, you are labeled as a merchant, or as a laborer, or as belonging to certain class of people. These are our external designations. So Prabhupada is clearly saying the designative disqualifications are removed. So usually when people read these kind of statements, you will take the negative meaning of that, but here is the positive. Everything that is written above is a designative disqualification. But designative disqualification does not apply in one's spiritual progress or how one approaches the Lord. And this is there in the scriptures in many places, and it is the most amazing thing about studying the Vedic literature, or the most amazing thing when we study Srimad Bhagavatam and so many associated literatures, you always see that there is no special qualification required other than turn towards the Lord with all your heart. And so when we turn towards the Lord with all our heart, different categories of people turn differently towards the Lord. And what does that mean? And Krishna's reciprocation, ye yathamam prapadyante, he reciprocates according to how we turn towards the Lord. So, but there is no designative disqualification that is going to stand in the way of our progress. And again, of course, but the interaction between a devotee and the Lord, it will differ. There is nothing that is going to block our progress as long as one turns towards the Lord. So, as pure souls, they become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. So now I think I will just speak a little about the way Prabhupada is concluding here. He's talking about Bhaumasura, how the Bhaumasura captured these 16,100 princesses and kept them in his fortress and imprisoned them, and how these girls who felt they were contaminated because Bhaumasura kept them under his control. But when Krishna went to release them from this imprisoned situation, all their heart turned towards Krishna. Anyway, they were devotees of the Lord. They were praying to the Supreme Lord, and therefore, even though in that externally contaminated appearance, from a situation from which Krishna has rescued them, they turned completely towards him, and as a result of which he gave them shelter. But Prabhupada is finishing this purport talking about how he interacted with each and every one of them individually. And these girls who were in such a terrible state under the control of Bhaumasura, they how did they become so glorified? Because Krishna, as their husband, personally attended to their needs every step of the way. And how, like Narada Muni, when he visited, he saw how Krishna was interacting with each one of his wives, and so much of glorification we hear in Srimad Bhagavatam, how he individually interacted with them day in and day out. And Prabhupada is concluding this purport with this description of how he brought Parijata plant from heaven and to please Satyabhama. So that brings us back to this demon, Bhaumasura. Now, Bhaumasura was the son of the Lord himself when the Lord appeared as Varahadev, and the union between Varahadev and Bhumi, Mother Earth, because Varaha lifted Earth from this Netherlands where it was pushed down, and Bhaumasura was born out of that. And so the Lord is his father, and Mother Earth is his mother. But somehow this Bhaumasura, he is otherwise also known as Narakasura. And I don't know if Sandhya Mataji is here, but in Kerala we have this Kathakali. Kathakali is a form of dance drama. And this Narakasura Vadham, killing of Narakasura, is one of the main themes. And I really wondered why did they pick that particular theme. It's a very action-packed theme of killing of Narakasura pastime. And Narakasura, even though the son of Lord, he had the bad association of Banasura. Now, Banasura, if you look into his history, he's another very demoniac character. He had 1,000 hands, and he was a worshipper of Lord Shiva. And what did he do? He was playing on the drums, and when Lord Shiva was doing his Tandava dance, Lord Shiva became pleased with him, gives him very special blessing that he will remain as his protector. And Banasura was threatening the whole, 3 planetary systems. And he even imprisoned his own daughter, Usha, and kept her on top of a hill where it was surrounded by fire. And Usha fell in love with Aniruddha, who was Krishna's son. And eventually, Krishna and Balaram, accompanied by so many others, went and fought and killed Banasura. But before that happened, there was a huge fight between Lord Shiva and Krishna. And Krishna put Lord Shiva into sleep to cut the whole scene short. Banasura was put into, Lord Shiva was put into a sleeping situation, and Krishna killed Banasura. But eventually, Krishna didn't kill. He actually cut off all his hands except 2. And Lord Shiva woke up and prayed to the Supreme Lord, please save him. and because he apologized, and Krishna saved his life. And this guy was the friend of Bhaumasura. Bhaumasura, who is the son of the Lord himself and Mother Earth. And Bhaumasura also, he became so arrogant, and he was threatening the whole three planetary systems, or 14 planetary systems, you can say the three, the heavenly planets, the earthly planet, and the Netherlands, everywhere. He's threatening everybody. And so Lord Indra was very concerned, because this guy even went to the heavenly planet and stole Indra's mother Aditi's earrings. He went to the lower planets, and he stole the umbrella belonging to Varuna Dev. And so, he's not only he was not only terrorizing the earthly planet, he was going everywhere. Even the audacity to steal Aditi's earrings and the umbrella of Varuna and all, put everything together. And then he had this extraordinary mentality of trying to steal the women and put them all on top of a mountain, and it is called Mani Parvata. And that mountain is actually part of Mount Meru. And not only that, he put them on top of this mountain, and he safeguarded this mountain from all sides with the help of this other guy called Mura demon. And Mura is an interesting character. He's like a snake-like person, and he has 5 heads, but he was effulgent. And he was crazy in the sense that, when he opened his mouth, he could terrorize the whole planetary systems. And he was extremely effulgent, and he had these mystic powers. And he fortified Narakasura's palace from all sides, like with a moat which is filled with water. Then there was a layer of fire. Then there was electricity. Then there was some gas. So even compared to modern technology, this Mura demon, that's why killing him, Krishna got the name Murari. So Mura demon was so advanced in this kind of technology that, so Narakasura or Bhaumasura, he thought that he is perfectly, he has safeguarded all these ladies who he stole. But when ultimately, because already Indra had appealed to Krishna, and when Krishna promised when he appears, he will deal with this person. And so it is said in Krishna book that Krishna came along with Satyabhama on Garuda, and he appeared so effulgent, like the Indranila jewel up in the sky, and he was shining like anything. And he comes to attack or kill this Narakasura. But then this Mura demon, he comes out of this water with his 5 heads, and he terrorizes everybody, and fire is coming out of his mouth, and he was looking like a glittering. It's a real nice science fiction theme. And Krishna kills Mura demon. He cuts off his head with his Sudarshan disc and all. Using Krishna using his own this gada, he smashes this whole palace, which was protected by some 11 Akshauhinis of army, of which belonged to this Narakasura. Krishna just used his club, and he smashed all these fortifications. Then Krishna killed the Mura demon's children, about 7 of them or so. And then Narakasura had his own 10 sons who were guarding the ladies who were kept on top of that mountain. He killed them, and he destroyed all the fortifications. It's like a James Bond movie or something, which is like the electric wire fence, and then there is the water, then there is the fire, then there is the gas. Krishna destroyed all of that in 1 second using his Sudarshan disc. In Krishna book, it is said that Krishna finally, when the demon attacked Krishna, or rather towards Garuda was also fighting. When the demon threw a trident, Krishna used his feathered arrow and smashed that trident into pieces. And ultimately, he cut his head off using the Sudarshan disc. So this fight is really pretty an interesting fight. And Krishna didn't bring any army. It's interesting that he brought Satyabhama with him. It is said Satyabhama, as we know, is also an expansion of Srimati Radharani. And she is also some personification of some aspect of Bhumi Devi is in her, because naturally all the Shaktis are coming from her. But at the end of this war, ultimately Mother Earth comes and garlands Krishna with a Vaidurya garland, and she offers so many prayers very profusely. She is offering all these prayers, and she returns the everything that was stolen by Narakasura, which was the what do you call that? The Aditi's earrings and Varuna's umbrella, and so many things which Narakasura collected. After all, this guy is her son, and so everything was returned to Krishna, and Krishna was, Krishna removed this burden of this particular demon from earthly planet, and then on the way back, Krishna and Satyabhama goes to the heavenly planet, where Indra is, to return Aditi's earrings, and that is where this Parijata story takes place. Because prior to all these things, Krishna had brought one flower, Parijata flower, and gifted Rukmini, who is none other than an expansion of Chandravali. As we know, Satyabhama is an expansion of Radharani. And of course, all the rest of the girls who were captured by Bhaumasura or Narakasura were also, there are multiple stories behind who they were. They were generally told they were princesses, but they were also naturally, because when they are becoming Krishna's wife, naturally they are expansions of the gopis or Lakshmis and gopis. That's who they were. And there is a whole how the theme evolves here. And so Krishna takes Satyabhama to the heavenly planet. She picks up a small Parijata tree. So Indra, who was quite pleased when Krishna brought Aditi's earrings, Indra immediately turns around and he gets mad that Satyabhama picked this Parijata. And so naturally, Krishna had to fight with the demigods and relieve them of their, fight and bring them back under under the proper understanding who Krishna is. And in the end, everybody calms down and Krishna and Satyabhama returns. And Prabhupada completes his purport by saying how Satyabhama, what was that in the end of the purport? Prabhupada says about Satyabhama, he brought the Parijata plant from heaven and implanted it at the palace of Satyabhama, one of the principal queens. If therefore anyone desires the Lord to become one's husband, the Lord fulfills such desires in full. So here comes the real interesting part of this, is that all these wonderful princesses, there is more writings about this in Lalita Madhava and all that, Rupa Goswami's writings and Jiva Goswami's writings. After these women were released from the stronghold of Narakasura, Krishna transported them to Mount Raibata. And it is said that when Krishna's pastime was evolving there in Dwarka, by Purnamasi's arrangement, Krishna's marriage is all set up. And Krishna, in fact, the way Chandravali, she's the Rukmini, Queen Rukmini was the first one Krishna marries, and then comes Satyabhama, and then comes the main associates, the Ashtasakis and all, or the associates of Chandravali, and all these gopis were brought in place in a very special way by the arrangement of Purnamasi. But these 16,100 princesses who were parked on top of a mountain, Garuda transports them to Dwarka, and under Purnamasi's arrangement, Krishna marries all of them. And And then he, as Prabhupada has written, amazingly, I mean, as in the detailed description in Srimad Bhagavatam, how Krishna interacted with each and every one of them. So even though from Bhaumasura's place, these girls were feeling contaminated, being kept there as prisoners by him, but that external disqualification did not matter. So that brings us back to this first paragraph where Prabhupada is saying so beautifully, Prabhupada says here, by engagement in the service of the Lord, the designated disqualifications are removed. So any external, from external point of view, when we look at it, it looks like somebody is contaminated. Somebody may not be qualified, but there is no disqualification. Designated disqualifications are completely removed the moment your attention goes to Krishna. And that has to go from the heart. It has to completely turn towards Krishna. And that's the beauty of this purport. Even though the first paragraph was like so intense, and I looked at it and it was, I was thinking like how different anybody reading this purport, depending upon where our heart is or where we are going to focus our attention, one can see different meanings in this purport. But Prabhupada gives the punchline here. All of them can be delivered if they are properly engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. By engagement in the service of the Lord, the designated disqualifications are removed. So no matter who you are, and externally you may, that's where he began about the contamination. There is no contamination when Ganges water is mixed with filthy water. And that's where he began. And this is the external designation. Externally looking, it looks like contaminated, but it is not contaminated. And so these girls, they became the queens of Krishna, and he served them individually in such a beautiful way. And that brings us to, there are so many cases, when we study Srimad Bhagavatam, and one which stands out, or even couple, one of them which stands out to me is the story of Pingala. And Pingala was the prostitute. And Krishna is speaking about Pingala to Uddhava in the 11th canto. So Pingala was a prostitute who was waiting to get her customers on the roadside. And those people, nobody was coming to see her. And so she was wanting money, and she wanted she also wanted these men to provide for her, and she was counting on them. Whole night passed, and then she gets a realization that this is no use of counting on these men to provide by engaging in this lowly profession. So at one point she has some realization. She's sharing those realizations in one of the sections. She speaks like, if one is not having any spiritual knowledge, then one will never give up one's sense of proprietorship. Because sense of proprietorship on what? On material things. And similarly, if one does not develop a detachment, and then one will never give up bondage to this material body. So it's an interesting thing is, if one does not develop detachment, one will not give up the bondage to the material body. I happened to hear one of His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj's classes, and he spoke something which was so special. He said that, however abominable you may be, the Lord doesn't even consider it once. Once you take shelter of him, you may be so abominable, but the Lord does not take it even once against you. He gives complete shelter. And he called it as enlightenment by frustration. Enlightenment by frustration. So there are various types of enlightenment. So in the case of Pingala, it is like enlightenment by frustration. So is that the end of it? No. Of course, the Lord gave her shelter. Then you can remember even the story of Vilyamangala Thakur, who was attached to women, and he even destroyed his eyes because he felt his eyes are taking him away from being attached to Krishna instead of looking at these ladies. And so, look at how he attained Krishna. So the point here is that no matter how externally it may appear to be one is contaminated, it is not going to be any hindrance provided one is able to turn towards Krishna. And I really liked the way Raghunath Maharaj explained this as that is the enlightenment by frustration in her case, but of course that is not the only way of enlightenment. But even such people who have so many other contaminations in their life, the Lord accepts them, purifies them, and that's very heartening to hear. And I'm going to pause it here. Thank you all for your patience. And if you have any comments or any points of discussion, that will be, we'll just wait for a few minutes.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. It was nice to hear you. I have two questions actually. One is when you said about how material designations is not an impediment, and it's very hope-giving. And so my question, I want to be careful in asking this question, but I'm going to ask it. So when we hear that material designations, whatever they are, they don't really, bhakti is caused by bhakti and not by our past, whatever we have or don't have.
Yeah.
And when we come across sometimes the tendency of someone, or just feeling that they deserve bhakti process from the sense of I'm qualified by my past, birth or activities or upbringing or all that. I have a hard time sometimes accepting it. I mean, I accept the fact that qualities that one may have acquired, like positive, favorable qualities that one may have acquired through their upbringing or circumstances, will definitely invite one to take up bhakti process.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's not the cause of bhakti process, and we don't. I don't know if I'm making sense. So, how to process when someone feels that?
Yeah. Yeah. You're talking about somebody who is coming from a good background, or whatever was that they are. I mean, their background, where they are coming from, they feel like they are more qualified. Is that what you're talking?
Yeah. And it kind of, I think, sometimes disrupts the faith of those who may not have that background, but they're sincere. So it
Yes,
kind
that
of.
is the turning point. So somebody can think that, okay, I'm from a Brahmin family, or I have been trained in this way, so I have all the qualifications. So that tells you a lot about that person, where they are situated. So because there is a tinge of pride there, and with pride we cannot go closer towards Krishna. But look at the opposite side of these. Prabhupada is saying clearly designative disqualifications. Now we are looking at the opposite side. People who have disqualification. When you are looking at from an external point of view, this is designative disqualification. What is designative? Designative meaning you look at someone who is born as a Kirada, Huna, some lower caste or something, where they may have too much association with the mode of passion and ignorance, and externally looking, you would compare that person and say, this is not like a Brahmana. This person does not qualify. Now look at it that way. But Prabhupada is telling, those qualifications does not, those disqualifications does not interfere in the progress of bhakti. So what about the person who is already feeling so proud about their own birth and whatever it is that they have by God's grace? That means that person cannot also make progress unless they give up this feelings of pride or entitlement or something. They may think I am in a better position, but somebody who is not in that better position, somebody who may be entirely in a different surrounding, externally looking at it, we may think that this person is in this bad situation. It doesn't look like there isn't anything that you can see. Such a person can turn around and make a big progress. But just by birth or just by thinking that I'm coming from this background, that does not take anyone close towards Krishna. Because there has to be turning towards Krishna means it is like a complete turning of one's attention towards Krishna. All those ladies they were not ordinary people who were captured by Bhaumasura or Narakasura. Their mind was completely fixed on Krishna, even though they were feeling totally disqualified because they were touched by Bhaumasura. I mean, touched meaning captured and kept in prison. But their own background was totally different. Their mind was on Krishna. Their heart was on Krishna. And so even though Krishna told them, you can go back to your parents, they said, no, we cannot go because we need you. We are contaminated people, but we need you. So will a person who is puffed up, like the one you are talking about, a person who is very much proud about one's own upbringing or what family one came from, will that person turn towards Krishna in all humility? One can sometimes get born in a very good family and still turn to Krishna also. But if that becomes an impediment, just pride creeps in, then Krishna is not accessible. But he is easily accessible to anybody, irrespective of your designation. That's what beautifully Prabhupada is explaining in here. At least that's what I understand, unless I don't know if it makes sense to you.
Yes, Mataji. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, I think I have further thoughts. Maybe how to then help somebody who's going through that difficulty of thinking that I got this because of my past good deeds or good qualification, and how to also be, I don't know, do we have to be protective of someone who may get affected by these?
How to help a person can be helped only if person is willing to accept help. And again, I always believe that we can share anything with someone and make a positive impact in their life if they are receptive to hearing. Because these are scriptural statements. Like what we have so many examples we can take where Krishna's pastimes, where we can put it all together and very nicely we can discuss these things in a very objective way. But however objective you are, depending upon the person who is hearing and who they are willing to hear from, that matters a lot. Because sometimes, when if we speak to someone, they may think like, okay, where is this person coming from? They can look at it that way. But if that person is willing to hear, we can present the scriptural understanding in a very objective way. We are not here to criticize anybody. We are not here to point out that, okay, you have this problem. Many times I have heard Maharaj sometimes answering questions. He always is very careful in choosing his words. And he would bring up various references or contexts, and then he will address it in a way which is not directly hinting at the person, but he just presents the facts, and then the person comes to a conclusion or a realization that, okay, this is where it is all coming from. It's not about if I said, oh, you are something like this and you will need to, then I guess then nobody wants to hear that. But When you present the subject matter in a very understandable way, cohesive way, and then their willingness to hear, then they will make they will accept. But one thing, there's a saying that you can take a horse to water, you cannot make it drink. Everybody has to come to their own realizations and acceptance, because this Krishna consciousness process is not like it's not something to be taken very lightheartedly, because this is our heart, it's our life and soul, and we are in this because we want to be in it, not because somebody forced us to be in here. And preaching is preaching is like Prabhupada said, whatever he has given, it is our duty and responsibility to give it. But how to give it, where to give it, there is like a different levels of receptivity. We have to see how best we can give. These are facts in the scriptures, and we are just putting it all together and just presenting. And we want to watch and see where the receptivity level is. You can speak the highest subject matter and the receptivity level is not there, then it may not produce the same effect. Hundreds of people are listening to a class. Everybody gets what they are looking for, because we have a sense of what do you call it? Selective hearing mentality is also there. You hear the same lecture, but different people get different messages. That again depends upon where we are in our journey. It's not a problem though. It is a journey. The whole process of Krishna consciousness is a journey. It's a journey for the person who is teaching it. It's a journey for the person who is hearing it also. It's so interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting journey, and I liked that what Rana Maharaj said, enlightenment by frustration. So I was thinking like, okay, that's a journey for a person, who is in that situation. It's by frustration you are turning towards Krishna. But it's also interesting to see how Maharaj was presenting of all these the classes of late. He was clearly showing that how a devotee interacts with Krishna, how he reciprocates with Krishna. It is so different, like the Brajavasi's position, why it is so distinctly different from, anybody else, even advanced devotees like Uddhava or someone else who in that category. And then there are other people who are in the category of those who worship him in his opulence, and the residents of Hastinapur and the residents of Dwarka. The way Krishna reciprocates, he is still reciprocating with everyone, starting from this Pingala prostitute to all the way up to the residents of Vrindavan. And so it's like he's reciprocating with everyone. There is no disqualification. Anybody can approach him, but the way in which he is reciprocating is so different. And so we are so fortunate. We have heard about what is the difference. We have all this opportunity of hearing what is the difference, why the Brajabasis are so exalted, why Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda are so exalted, and it's very inspiring to hear that Krishna can reciprocate even with a blade of grass in his own way. So it's a journey for everybody. And what are we, tiny little people, trying to enlighten each other, and with our defects and our what to call limited understandings, and we are speaking from where we are also, and yeah, that's what I feel.
Thank you, Mathaji. I think there are a few things that I am taking away. One is the way in which we communicate is very important also. It's not just my conception that I just share. Instead, that just really give scriptural conceptions and not what I personally have something or don't have something. So that is, I think that helps me to be at a place which is healthy, both for me and the other person.
Yeah, to say for us also.
Yeah.
Because we are not saying that something is wrong with you, but this is
Right.
what the scriptures are saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any comments?
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to
Yes.
Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. Mataji, I have this question. Wonderful class, so many messages and lot of learning. My question is, Prabhupada says like women are not intelligent, and I've heard Prabhupada saying that women are prone to take devotional service as compared to men, and so when we do that, I mean, when women does that, Krishna gives intelligence, or we use our intelligence. How do we understand these two things?
I didn't get the last part. What did you say? The
Women are more prone to take devotional service as compared to men.
That's not what is stated here. It's other places. Prabhupada has made various statements, but here the statement is women merchants and laborers are not very intelligent, and thus it is very difficult for them to understand the science of God or to be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. And then he gives the answer, and I was like, so why they cannot be engaged in the service of the Lord? He immediately gives the answer, because they are more materialistic. And then he categorizes, and less than them are these Kiradas, Hunas, Andhras, and all those people. And I was like, how in the world is that they became even lesser than women and merchants? And so, answer is right here. Prabhupada is saying, Prabhupada is not calling women that you don't have qualification. He's talking about the psychophysical nature. Now, this will be very tough to present it to someone who is hearing about Krishna or hearing Krishna conscious philosophy for the first time. Imagine trying to explain a statement like this to somebody who don't know anything about Prabhupada or his writings. How in the world are we going to explain it to such a person? Just like what Shatruba is asking, like how do we explain this to a person who is new to Krishna consciousness versus somebody like us who have been reading and hearing for quite some time? But it's so interesting here. Prabhupada gives that answer, and we have to understand what this answer is. They are more materialistic. Now, are we all women in here? Are we all willing to accept we are more materialistic? But then we look back and see what is our psychophysical nature. Generally, women are very protective about their children, our attachment to family, our children, our emotional nature, everything. Those are like quite different from um, men. And I'm not saying like men becomes more qualified just because their emotional nature is different. Usually women are very emotional and very protective. They want to take care of their family and their children. When a husband does not carefully spend, or the husband does not think about the future of these children's school or something, women completely freaks out. And so women have that attachment in them, and mothers have attachment to their children. And is that a disqualification? It is not. Merchants have certain qualities, which is like they are dealing with money. They have to be a little bit of cunning. And laborers have their own qualities. And then Prabhupada is listing all these people who are belonging to a different category. They associate a lot more with the mode of passion and ignorance, and therefore he categorizes them, and yet immediately after categorizing, he is saying that they can be delivered if they are properly engaged in devotional service. Engagement in the service of the Lord, the designative qualifications are removed. So I don't know if I understood your question. Designative qualification is that the external hat that we put on. Today I say I am a mother. Tomorrow, I mean, I am a daughter of so and so, or I am a computer engineer, or I am a woman, I am a man. These are designative qualifications. Or I belong to a lower caste, I belong to a higher caste, like a Brahmana caste. These are external designative qualifications. And so the point here is Prabhupada is telling, it will appear like a very striking statement. Why is Prabhupada saying this? And then you internalize it, you just think, and that's a difference between a devotee group like us here compared to somebody who has never studied these scriptures or never fully understood, what is devotional service. And they may just take this one sentence and feel like offended. This is like what is it? What do they call that? Uh, when you compare women as lower, there is some terminology. They will think that Prabhupada is one of those people. Why is he pulling down the women? He's never pulling down the women. And look at, and women also, even within the category of women, you see tons of ladies always going to the temple, more than men. You also see great personalities like, Meera and Lord Nityananda's wife, Janavi Mata. Of course, she's a different category. Ganga Mata Goswamini. We can take like so many people. Queen Kunti. There are so many personalities like that who are extraordinary devotees because they don't have that external designation. They have turned already towards Krishna. So no longer they are in the category of just being called as a woman. They're acting on the platform of the soul. I don't know if I answered your question. I don't know if I understood your question correctly. Was there something other than that?
Yes, Mataji, I think you answered, but my question also was like, um, I have heard in Srila Prabhupada's lecture that women are prone to take devotional service as compared to men, and
Yeah.
and does Krishna give intelligence, or we use our intelligence? Let's say, for example, as compared to now, Prabhupada in this verse, he's saying that they are less intelligent. So how do we understand these
It is
two?
not intelligence at all. Taking to Krishna is not intelligence. Women, what is the women's nature? They have a soft heart. Agree? Women are soft-hearted, correct? Except some demoniac people here and there. But mostly, generally speaking, they are soft-hearted. And so the soft heart is very good for Krishna consciousness. Being hard-hearted does not take us anywhere. And soft-heartedness is a good thing. And that's why, Prabhupada writes about the same topic from different angles and different purports. And it is amazing. Like if one is, there are some devotees who are capable of quoting verses from here, there, and there. But unfortunately, someone like me, I don't have the intelligence to remember all that. But we remember reading like this one, for example, what you brought to the forefront is, yes, Prabhupada has written various things. Prabhupada is not a person who was against women. He put all his all the disciples like Yamuna Devi, so many wonderful devotees, they gave their life for Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada respected women. You know, he the culture of calling all the ladies as mother, that Prabhupada put that in place. See, he told the men, see every other woman as your mother, treat them with respect. And Prabhupada did all that. So the question you are asking is that when Prabhupada wrote, the more women turn to Krishna consciousness, it's not surprising because they are soft at heart and it is easy for them to practice.
Right.
So from that perspective, you can say we are, we are more fortunate. We are in a better position because you already have that softness. And so only thing to do is turn it towards Krishna. And do we have some problems? Yes. Material attachments? Yes. Because that is a mother's job or that is a woman's job to take care of the family. And so because in the process of taking care of the family, if we does not have if we do not develop detachment, that was the Pingala's point I was trying to make. Pingala shares many of her realizations in that section in 11th canto. So Pingala says that any human being, if you don't have spiritual knowledge, then you will never give up this false sense of proprietorship. We develop this sense of proprietorship. We have to give it up, and then. If you do not consciously develop detachment, what will happen? it's very hard to give up the bondage. So bondage comes because of this softness of heart and deep attachment, feeling of protection for the family. And so while on the one side we may have good things in our life going on, which is favorable to nurture Krishna consciousness, on the other side there is this difficulty, which is because of our attachment, we may become bound. We will never let go. I have heard some devotee mothers sharing this, that, oh, I cannot imagine what I will do when my child grows up. Right now I'm running around taking care of all their school needs and it fills my day. And now what will happen when my child goes to college and he or she is no longer in the house? Or what will happen when they get married? I feel like my life will be a void. There will be an empty space there which I can never fill. That's called, never developed any detachment. Detachment does not mean you will forget your children either. You have to cultivate that, otherwise there is no progress. You will not, attachment to material things and detachment from material things and attachment to Krishna, that has to happen. It's not like attachment to Krishna and attachment to material things together. It will not help us to progress properly. It's just like putting your 2 feet in 2 boats and trying to cross a river. If you put 2 feet in 2 boats, you will fall down. That's what is going to happen. But if you put both feet in one boat, so for women, particularly understanding from these kind of purports that Prabhupada has written, since understanding that we have this deep attachment nature, better detach ourselves consciously and attach ourselves to Krishna. Otherwise, I always remember the story of Tukaram. They made it into a movie, and it was an award-winning movie also. And the last part of his life, they dramatized it. This lady was always in the kitchen, and she had a cow which was given to her by her mother or father. Somebody had given her a cow. This is Tukaram's wife. And she was looking after this cow so nicely, and I forgot what language it was made. I think Marathi or something. I didn't understand too much of it, but she will always worship this cow because her mother had given. And Tukaram was completely absorbed in thoughts of the Lord, and he will completely forget everything. He will wander around, and she got so used to him. But she had a deep attachment to her husband. She wanted to serve her husband, and that made her a better person. Otherwise, she was really a loud person. She was all the time shouting and screaming and all that. But she loved Tukaram. And one day she was carrying this food for him because he didn't come home. And she was going on top of a hill, and a thorn stuck in her foot. And she was cursing and crying. And then one young boy came and said, "Can I remove the thorn from your foot, mother?" And she will allow him. And so she said, "Thank you so much. My husband is somewhere up. I need to feed him. He never comes home." And then, so the boy, she asked him, "What is your name?" And he will say, "Panduranga." And she got so mad at him. He will say, "I wish if I had known your name was Panduranga, I would not have asked you to help me." Now, she was so mad at Krishna because he felt, her husband is never attentive and she's always absorbed in writing songs about Krishna, that she goes and sits on top of the hill. And so she was mad at Krishna and she chased the boy away. And she goes and feeds her husband. Krishna is laughing, seeing how her devotion to her husband, this devotee, who is such a wonderful person. Now, the funny part of it comes dramatized towards the end, where she was making chapatis in her kitchen. And her husband, the Vaikunta aeroplane came to take Tukaram to the Vaikunta planet. And so he come, all the whole village, everybody is gathered there. Panduranga, Panduranga, everybody's chanting and happy, so happy. And Tukaram is ready to leave. And so he remembers his wife. He always very kind to her. And he was thinking, "Oh, my poor wife, I don't want to leave her here. I will take her to Vaikunta." So he goes into the kitchen and says to his wife, "Why don't you just come, let us go. And she did not even turn around and look at him. So she thought he's going somewhere as usual. And so she just said, okay, you always like to go somewhere, you carry on and come back soon. And she was continuing to make her chapati. And then Tukaram comes out and Vaikunda plane takes him to the Vaikunda realm. Everybody was chanting Panduranga, everybody was glorifying Krishna. And somebody came running inside the kitchen to tell her, look, your husband is going to Vaikunda. Why didn't you go with him? And then she realizes, oh my goodness, my husband has gone. So he comes out crying, calling out her husband by the time the Vaikunda plane has already left. And this is what I always joke about, that we are making chapatis every day, feeding the family. And so Vaikunda plane will come. And you will be still making chapatis in the kitchen.
Yes, Mataji. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mataji.
I went overboard. I'm so sorry. 8:10 here. One last call and I'm done. I'm sorry, Lingaraju Prabhu, for dragging this out. Okay, I think that's it for today. Thank you all for your patience and really appreciate it. Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.